Terry unfortunately had to be called away, so he's not here today. First of all, let me welcome everyone to this week's Jonesboro Rotary meeting and ask for Chad Spivey to give us the invocation.
All right, I'm going to give a traditional invocation and then we'll do the service above self. If you don't mind bowing your heads real quick. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, thank you so much for another beautiful day on this earth, Lord. Please be with those that are affected by the hurricane in Texas and Louisiana, Father, and we pray that they get back on their feet sooner than later. And Lord, we just thank you so much for all our blessings. In Jesus Christ we pray. Service above self. Open our eyes that we may see. Open our ears that we may hear. Touch our hearts that we may love. Clear our minds that we may think. Strengthen our hands that we may work.
Thank you very much, Chad. First of all, I wanted to ask Larry if he could give a little recognition to the Boys and Girls Club.
Well, I can because I'm going to just turn it over to John right now, who's Jacob's sponsored, and this is no pressure or anything like this. But John, could you take it from here?
Sure. Jacob, come on up. All right. So Jacob is being proposed as a member with our club.
We're getting in front of the camera.
And, oh, that's right in the camera. Jacob's being proposed as a member. Jacob just recently was brought on with the Boys and Girls Club. Prior to that, Ashworth. Sorry about that. David Spivey and I knew Jacob from the Y. I know Jacob also because we've been doing stuff with Lee Senior High School, which you were the track coach.
Track and cross country.
Track and cross country. So we know him from many different avenues. And we want to present you with a $12,000. Turn the camera off. $1,250 check for the 16th annual golf tournament. And thank you for your interest in Jonesboro Rotary, and we look forward to you serving with us.
Thank you for support.
Thank you.
Oh, John, since you're not here to do this,
Okay, yeah.
I'll do it for you.
Thank you, David.
And Jacob,
usually me
you said
doing
you
that
already
picture
got
thing.
30 sponsors?
Yes, we're right around 30.
That's amazing.
That's terrific. And David, do you want to get
Let me run, see if I can get him.
Yeah, we wanted to give the servers some recognition, and David's been collecting money for the last month or so, and I think only 2 of them are here, but we're going to go ahead and give all the money back to them to let them know how much we appreciate
Larry,
it.
what's the date of that golf tournament?
September 12th. It's Tuesday.
You may have sold another one there. While David's coming, I just want to remind, this is your last chance to sign up for RL1 or 2. They're both going to be at the Civic Center next Friday, a week from tomorrow. And the club will pay for your attendance there. Lunch will be provided. You will need, if you go online, to pay it by credit card, and then we'll get you reimbursed if you bring your receipt to us.
Jimmy, just thank you.
Okay.
He's flipping something grid.
There's 2 initiatives going on about the hurricane. Lloyd sent out an email this morning, and I would just read some of the high points of it. On behalf of Rotary clubs and Rotarians, we will be sending $2,000, and this is the district, in immediate emergency assistance to the affected Rotary districts. And they've got a list of districts, and I don't know if I should forward this on to all of our members, but there's 4 districts in the Houston area, which is a remarkable number of districts. So they're sending some money right away. If you want to help financially as individual Rotarians or as a Rotary club, we highly recommend that you send checks to our district newly established Rotary Donor Advised Fund, which was established just for this purpose. Donations are tax deductible, and checks be made payable to the Rotary Foundation DAF, Donor Advisory Fund. So if anyone wants to contribute to that, you can let me know, and I can forward it on. Third, we will maintain a dialogue with the affected district's leadership to ensure your generous charity support is used towards things that they may assess to be needed for immediate assistance and future recovery initiatives to make the greatest impact and difference. Fourth, you will be periodically updated through the district's newsletter and other means on Rotary's recovery initiative and efforts. So I got this memo and I called Jim Miller, and Jim is in Asheville today. He's out recreating. And I made a comment. I said, what's happening with Shelter Box? And apparently they're going to be sending tents, not the full shelter, because they just don't deem that that particular population will need them. But they would use the tents to establish some personal space in these shelters. And so Jim said he would appreciate it if I would ask if the club would contribute. I think he'll be here next week, and that would be plenty of time. But he said he would match the donations from the club. So I personally think that's a pretty good way to go. We've kind of adopted Shelter Box as one of our initiatives this coming year, and you know, because Jim is such an advocate for it and has told us so much about how important it is, I think it would be a really good. I just know if anybody had any comments or other suggestions about what to do about
That's
this.
a smart way to do it.
Okay. Well, Jim will be here next week, he promised. And by the way, next week is going to be at Jonesboro United Methodist Church.
Right.
There'll be a board meeting at 11, and they've got a little section that we will have sectioned off, and then the regular meeting at 12. We had 14 people show up this morning at CUOC, which was actually a little better than I thought. There was 10 Rotarians, one wife, my wife, and 3 from Sanford came too, which was really good. So we actually got in there right at 8 o'clock, and we were done at 8:40, which was really nice, you know, to not have to go over. It was kind of a surprise, everybody.
How many packages do we put together?
I think it's 320. That's what you told me.
Because there was a lot of tubs.
Yeah.
They didn't have any other tubs left?
They've changed the method. The old method was pass the bag down after you stuff it. And this way, you just walk around and stuff your own bag. And boy, it went fast, really quick. Let's see.
Counting to 10 was the hardest.
Yeah. Get the right number in the bag.
That was tough. We should have signed somebody.
That's not good from an accountant.
When you're walking around throwing stuff in.
He's my accountant too.
I'm really happy our treasurer is back today. And of course, I'm really glad Chad's back today.
How's the baby, Nash?
Great.
I can
Good.
handle that.
Yes,
I don't know
he's
that
great.
fast.
He sleeps at night, so he's a good baby.
Yeah, and by the way, will you let them know we're not gonna be here next week
Yes.
on your pay today?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And now I'd ask Laura that she would do our Sergeant at Arms report.
All right, reporting for duty. I think Van is enjoying my apprenticeship. I know. Hey, no problem. Wonderful, so I want to first, of course, welcome our visitors today. We have 2 guests, Krista Lambert, and this is Peggy Tapborn and Jacob Toth, who will be our program, will be doing our program this morning. So, wonderful. And we have Jacob Ashworth, guest of the club. Oh yes, of course, we've already introduced Jacob. And any other visitors today that haven't already been welcomed or announced? I don't recognize anybody, but that I'm doing. Okay, no visiting Rotarians. Of the announcements, of course, we've already gone through the sponsorship check to the Boys and Girls Club. Any other announcements that we need to go through?
I have one that I forgot. Andy gave this to me. Terry has asked if we would let everyone know there's a virtual communication mixer August 31 today at the Pittsburgh Roadhouse. It doesn't say what time, but it's $15 a person. So if you're interested, come up here and I'll show you the flyer. You can make arrangements.
Maybe there's no chance it's virtual?
Virtual means, but it doesn't say what time. Yeah, I guess I could maybe.
Is this something that would? Well, not my forte either. Okay, so we have a virtual mixer. Makeups, let Bill know. Any makeups to be done? And without further ado, let's brag. Who has a brag for us?
Neil.
We have a
Neil's
brag.
brag.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my wife and I will be celebrating our 46th anniversary next Monday. However, we celebrated it last night up in Raleigh.
Okay,
Any
keep
sure
bragging.
that-
Keep bragging. Let's brag. Who's got another brag?
Okay. This one is that, an announcement that David Morris and I are undefeated in doubles tennis at Trace. And we figured out the secret to being undefeated. I get the ball in play and then get out of his way. He's a great tennis player.
Wonderful. Other brags? Anybody else bragging? I'll put a brag in as soon as I get a little bit of change, but it was my husband's birthday on Monday, and I relish this time of year because for 2 months we're the same age. 'Cause I'm 10 months older than he is, and he always likes to remind me of the inevitability, so for 2 months we are the same age. So he turned 33 on Monday, so I'm proud of him and all his accomplishments. What other brags? Anybody else bragging? Okay, wonderful. Looks like the servers are here. Oh, we got another brag?
That's Terry.
Oh, this is for Terry. Okay, wonderful. And I'll throw another brag in for our turnout this morning. I thought it was a great way to start the day. I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the Backpack Pals program. And so let's do it again soon. Okay, I'll bow out and turn over the stage.
Okay, thank you. David?
Thank you. Will you ladies please come forward? Last year, during my year, this crowd took care of us every week we were here. They did a fabulous job, and we just have a little token of our appreciation from the generosity of the club, and I decided to donate my salary from Rotary last year. So, it's give it to the ones who aren't here. Thank you so much for all you do for us.
Oh, thank you.
And enjoy it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Okay, with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Chris.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I got to bring one of my best friends in the world here today. She's one of 2 women. Yeah, right? I'm going to make you dance before this is all said and done. You keep messing with me. I think that the thing that I love about Peggy Taphorn the most is that I recognize she's one of 2 women in the world who can put up with me on a daily basis. And if you think I'm not a handful, just ask her. She'll be more than happy to tell you, especially on particular days. Peggy, I talk to people all the time in the community. Peggy's been here now for 10 years at the helm of the temple. The fact that we have somebody as talented and as experienced as her really is mind-boggling, to be perfectly honest. I've said this to some of you all before and said this in open forums, that when Peggy was hired back in 2007, probably 95% of the people that could have been hired for that position would have had to close the Temple Theater, period. That's a real story. The fact that she's been able to keep it open and that we've been able to get through the recession and get to a point where we're thriving is amazing, and it's a testament to her creativity and her business sense. I do need to warn you before I introduce her, though, that she came and she talked to Sanford Rotary on Tuesday, and I stopped in on one particular fellow that was at that meeting, and he said, you know, Peggy showed me how the bills are and how much it costs for these productions and what your revenues from tickets are. How do y'all make any money? I don't know. We work really, really hard, frankly, is what it comes down to. And sometimes, I don't even know, but we managed to do it, and it's with the support of businesses and individuals in the community that we're able to do what we do. But I'm proud to call the Temple my home, and to call Peggy my friend and my boss. So Peggy Taphorn.
So as Chris mentioned, I am beginning my 10th season, and when I got here in 2007, I came the May that Sanford was celebrating its centennial. And so my first public appearance in Sanford was in period garb, walking around Depot Park, handing out flyers for the Temple Theater, which was then called the Hidden Gem of Lee County. And since it's the 10th anniversary and I just had to do a giant state grant application, I'm full of statistics today that I'd love to share with you. So that day, I walked around town behind Woody and Hal Seiler, God rest his soul, and they pointed out all the different buildings in downtown Sanford, and I just saw it. I saw the potential. I saw all the uniqueness that makes Sanford what it is. And just a few weeks ago, we had about 150 actually, Main Street managers come to Sanford. And I was one of the people that took a group and walked around historic downtown Sanford and pointed out all the new things that we have in Sanford in the past 9 years. I pointed out a lot of the new murals. I pointed out where the new microbrewery is going to go in. I pointed out all the different restaurants that weren't there. So it was really exciting for me. The Buggy Factory, that whole street, Chatham Street, what it looks like now, what it looked like 9 years ago. So again, the potential that I saw in my mind when I decided to come to Sanford is now being realized, and that is due to all of you who are the movers and shakers and people that are dedicated to this community and making us stronger and stronger every year. So for that, I applaud all of you. And one of the challenges at the Temple back then was that many people hadn't been to the Temple since it was a movie theater, hadn't heard of the Temple, didn't think our programs were professional, just didn't know about it. So in the past 9 years, with Chris's help, that has been our main mission, is to get out the word. And in putting together this latest grant, I'm very happy to say that Temple Theater draws in people from 61 counties in North Carolina. Honestly, I thought it was going to be about 12. So we both were like, what? We just kept going through all the statistics from the box office. And last season, 61 counties. I'm really proud of that. I'm really proud of the economic push that we give to downtown Sanford. Our budget last year just finally reached the $1 million mark, which has been one of my goals when I arrived here. So now we can start applying for more federal grants, which I think will only help us to strengthen our organizational base so that we can then hire more staff. We can also produce even more shows. One of the other neat statistics that I uncovered was that when I got here in 2007, we served that year 24 youth, because we did one summer program and there were 24 kids in it. We didn't have a student matinee program. We didn't have an in-school tour program, all of these things that we have now. We didn't have academy classes. Last season, we served 8,674 youth. That's huge. That's amazing. One of those reasons is because we have Greta Zanstra as our education director. And when she got here, I said, Greta, between you and I, we are going to expand this program exponentially every single year. And we have done just that. We've added all those things, the student matinees. Now for every main stage show, any kid whose teacher will bring them, and homeschoolers can come and see our professional shows for $7 a piece. That includes the teachers and the chaperones. For example, Christmas Carol, last year we sold out every student matinee before school was even in session. This year we've sold out every student matinee for Christmas Carol before school was even in session. So we have added Wednesday matinees as well for Christmas Carol. We have a sold out student matinee coming up for Footloose, which is the beginning of our new season. So in getting out the word, we really are bringing thousands of tourists to Sanford every year. Last year, it was about 40,000 unique visitors came through our doors. And for our sponsors and our contributors, that means you reached 40,000 people. People who have discretionary income to spend, people who want to go out and about. And the statistics on that is that for every person who comes through the Temple door, they spend at least $34 in our community. Either eating, buying gas, stopping at the pantry on the way out. That is the state statistic. That's not even a national, that's a North Carolina statistic. So all those people are coming downtown. If you ask the restaurateurs and the shops, they have a huge push. Just try to get into Miss Lacey's on a Thursday for lunch. It's impossible. One of the other reasons we have so many people coming from all these different counties is that with Chris's help, we are now one of the North Carolina tour stops. So all these buses are coming in on Thursdays and Fridays and the matinees. They flood downtown Sanford, and they want to make it an event. So they'll have lunch, they'll go to the shops, they really want to spend the day, then they get back on the bus. One of our new challenges is to get overnight guests. because they rate differently as tourists and visitors. So we're trying to put together packages that will entice people to come to Sanford and stay in Sanford for the evening, which I think is one of the goals that we'll be attaining in the next couple of years. One of the other great things is all of our physical plant activity. If you haven't been to the temple lately, you haven't seen it. We now own 4 buildings. We have our admin building, we have the beautiful Temple Theater itself, which has a fully renovated concession and restroom area. I never thought my legacy would be toilets, but if that's my legacy, I'm all for it. Because it is one thing that I'm very proud of. Again, when I got here in 2007, we had two stalls for the ladies. Well, now we have 9 stalls for the ladies. And they're beautiful. So again, if you haven't been to the temple lately, you need to come and visit us because it's very different. This past year, we completely renovated our rehearsal hall. We put in a new wood floor, we put in new mirrors, we put in new lighting. We really do want to keep and attract all of this talent that is now being drawn to downtown Sanford, including this young man who's sitting next to me, which I think is one of the unique things that we do for this area. Not only do we bring in, hello, Miss Yvonne, the tourists and the visitors, but we bring in professionals from New York, from Chicago, from the West Coast to work with our regional talent pool. For example, for Footloose, which we're kicking off the season with, we have about 36 youth from 7 different counties who are driving to Sanford every night, 5 nights a week, and then we rehearse for 8 hours on Saturday, for 5 hours on Friday, to work with people like Jacob. One of the other statistics I uncovered was that since I got here, some of the young people, and it's up to now 8 of the young people that we started at the Temple Theater have now gone on to make theater their professional career. Living in New York, living in Atlanta, living in Chicago. And traditionally that's not the path that a lot of people take, especially from this area. So I'm really proud that they have found their home and found their passion and are living the dream because of what we taught them and instilled in them at the temple. But I tell all of the kids, because literally, 9.5 out of 10 are not going to go into theater, that they learn so many other skills. In fact, I met with the principal of Southern Lee this week, and I'm meeting with Lee Senior's principal actually tomorrow to talk about the professional education that they get. Because we do the Thursday and Friday matinees now, kids have to miss school. So it's very important that they keep up their homework. A lot of them are also on sports teams or in band, marching band. So we make sure that we have a good relationship with the schools and the principals and the teachers so that these kids can take advantage of everything that they are learning. Public speaking, how to work on a team, physical fitness, which all of those things have sort of been lost in our new age of everybody just stare at a screen, you know what I mean? So we make everybody put their phones away when they come in for their 5-hour rehearsal, and they have to engage with each other. You have to be able to look somebody in the eye. You have to be able to introduce yourself. We have a program called the Ambassador Program that meets the second Tuesday of every rehearsal. And for a crisp $20 bill, if you're an ambassador, you have the privilege of having some cheap wine and some good food, and then you mix and mingle with the cast, and then you can watch some of the rehearsal to kind of see how the soup is made. Jacob and I up there dancing around and yelling at them, no, go that way, to see kind of how it all transforms from the rehearsal process to the stage, what the audience sees on opening night. And so I told all the kids, particularly, I told the adults too, but I said, do not just stand in little clumps and talk to yourselves. Go up to people, introduce yourselves, tell them where you go to school, what you do, what your passions are, what your hobbies are. And I've had 10 or 12 people since Tuesday stop me and go, boy, you must have given them some speech, because they came right up and I had like 36 kids introduce themselves, one right after the other. So we really do teach a lot more than just how to sing and dance on stage, and all of that I'm very proud of. Chris wants me to talk about advertising dollars, which is another way that the Temple Theater is unique in downtown Sanford. Again, we had 40,000 people go through our doors last year. We are now up to 11,000 people on our hard mailing list. We have almost 6,000 likes on Facebook, and all of our sponsors get credit for that, not only on the marquee, not only in our insert, not only in the playbill, but in all that social media as well. We now partner with 6 different radio stations on a weekly, if not monthly basis. We partner with half a dozen, again, magazines that come out monthly that we have a presence in that is, again, are reaching 61 counties in North Carolina. So advertisers and sponsors certainly get a lot of bang for their buck when they advertise with the temple. which is a great segue to now is your chance. This is the time of year where we are soliciting donations and sponsorship. The Temple Theater as a nonprofit sits on a three-legged stool. And typically in a nonprofit theater, about 38 to 40% of one of your legs is ticket sales. Well, at the Temple Theater, our ticket sales are about 64% of our budget, which I'm very proud of, but which is also a little scary. Because the other two legs that our little stool sits on are corporate donations, private donations, and then the third leg is grants. As you can imagine, since the economy tanked in 2008, that year, which is what Chris was referencing about the temple almost closing, within a 2-month period, 60% of our corporate sponsors and our donors backed out on their pledges. So, and all of the Temple Theater expenses are front-loaded. We have to pay licensing for every show. For example, we're doing Beauty and the Beast to end this fabulous season. The licensing fees and royalties for that will be probably around $30,000. We've already made a $13,000 deposit just to get the rights to do the show. And we had to do that for all 7 shows. All of that happens in the summer. We have to pay our actors, we have to pay our technicians, we have to pay our choreographer and our directors and our lighting designers. All of those people get paid before we have 1 ticket sold. So our corporate sponsorship, our private donations, and our grant money goes for that base pot of money to get us through the season. And then ticket sales pick up the slack throughout the year. That's why this time of year is very important. So if you'd like to be a season ticket holder, if you'd like to be a corporate sponsor, if you haven't made a donation, now's your chance. Because both forms are in this lovely brochure. And I do want to talk a little briefly about the season because I'm excited about it. We are jokingly calling it the Pegiversary season. And last year we did some audience polling and they picked their top 10 shows. So we decided this year we would do the audience favorites. Well, the top 3 picks were Cats, Annie, and Chicago. So I applied for Cats, Annie, and Chicago and was denied the rights for all 3 of those. So next on the list was Footloose, which kind of gave me pause. I was like, really, Footloose? Well, believe it or not, Footloose is now a classic, hurts my heart to say, musical, with all this great 80s music. But the kids these days know it because there was just recently, a couple years ago, a new movie came out. So I think our generation remembers the Kevin Bacon, John Lithgow movie. Well, these kids know a whole different version. But it's still a great story, and it's a great way to kick off our season. Like I said, I'm really excited that we have so many youth from so many different areas who came out and auditioned for it and got this. We had over 95 kids audition for Footloose from all over the state, really. Because we had people who were staying with their grandparents here in Sanford who came to the audition just for the professional experience of it. So I'm really proud. We are definitely putting them through their paces, and that's how we're going to kick off this wonderful season. Then we're doing a great new show called Clue the Musical, which is based on the board game and the movie. And the unique thing about that is that the audience picks who did it in what room with what object. And then the actors, only one of the actors knows those 3 things. So he gives them clues so the actors find out through interacting and through how the lines are coming out. There are over 250 different endings to Clue the Musical. So we've hired an A-list team of actors to come in and contain all that information in their heads. Then we're bringing back again our own musical adaptation of A Christmas Carol. This has become one of Sanford's beautiful holiday traditions. It'll be the last time we do it for a while. This is the 3rd in a series of 3 years where we do Christmas Carol. Then we'll take a couple of years off and then we'll bring it back again. So again, that's one that is of and for this community. We have over 70, I think, again, it hurts my heart to think about what these rehearsals are gonna be because we've been double casting it. I had so many kids interested in Christmas Carol this year that we are triple casting Christmas Carol so that everybody can be involved. And then in January, Jason Petty and Katie Deal are coming back. I met Jason when I was living in New York and he was doing his Hank Williams show on Broadway. And he, I think, is one of the most talented country singer-songwriters that we have. And he has teamed up with Katie Deal. Last year they did Classic Nashville Roadshow, which is a bunch of the classic country duets. And it was so popular that he recorded his CD for that here at the Temple Theater, which is really cool, which it now says on every CD that he sells, wherever he goes. But he was so inspired by our Temple audiences that he is writing Classic Nashville Roadshow 2, the sequel, And he is going to do his world premiere of that show here at the Temple Theater. So every time he performs it from here on out, it will say originally staged and done at the Temple Theater in Sanford, North Carolina. So that's really cool. I'm looking forward to that. After that, we are bringing back another audience pick, this one by a landslide in the play category, and that is The Odd Couple. We do it with a little bit of a twist. Our two leads, Oscar and Felix, Michael Brocky, some of you might remember Michael. He has moved on from Sanford, but he's coming back to reprise his role as Felix/Oscar, because our Felix and Oscar switch every day. So one night they'll be Felix, the next night they'll be Oscar. And a lot of the audience came twice because they're like, after seeing it once, I can't imagine this guy playing that part. So it was really fun. And Trish Hamilton and I are reprising our roles as the fabulous Pigeon Sisters. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I have most of that original cast is able to come back and be a part of that. Then we're doing something that Richard's very familiar with. It is called the Church Basement Ladies. It's set in Minnesota in a Lutheran church, and it's about those ladies that we all can recognize who literally run the church from the basement. Not only do they cook and clean, but that's where the pastor and the ministers go to talk about, the problems that they're having. It's a great show. I've been trying to get the rights to that one for about 4 years. So I'm really excited that we finally got the rights. It's a musical. It's really charming and very funny. And again, no matter if you're Lutheran, Baptist, Jewish, Catholic, you can relate to these ladies that sort of run the church from the basement and from our stomachs. Following that, as I mentioned, we are doing the biggest show ever in Temple Theater history, Beauty and the Beast. And that was done, again, to feature some area youth, but also because of the new movie, it's sort of out in the zeitgeist these days. And so we figured it'd be a great family-friendly way to end our season. So we're doing the big splashy musical Footloose with lots of kids. Again, very friendly to the family. We're ending with Beauty and the Beast. So I really do think, once again, we've sort of gotten something for everyone. And like I mentioned, Beauty and the Beast will be our biggest expensive show ever produced on the Temple Theater stage. So this year, more than ever, we need people to kind of step up so that we can continue to bring all of these great shows and all of this great talent to all of us here in Sanford. I did want to introduce Jacob for a minute, just to say hello. Again, he's a treasure. He works all over the world, including Broadway, and a couple times a year he'll be back for the Beauty and the Beast. He joins us here in Sanford. And if you ask any of the kids that are in the show what it's like to work with Jacob, it is like Broadway boot camp. These kids are working hard. And it's because of this caliber of talent. But does anybody have any questions for me? Yes, David.
Why is it difficult to get licensed for certain? I was saying, yeah, send me the money.
Exactly. Well, and you would think that was true. The challenge and the great thing about Sanford is that we are centrally located. That's our slogan, right? Because we are centrally located and we only have 330 seats. If there's a show, a tour, I once got denied the rights to Annie because Annie on Ice was coming through in Fayetteville for one night. I couldn't do it. So it's because of that, because we are less than 60 miles from Greensboro, from Durham, from Raleigh, from Fayetteville, from Moore County, and there are tours. And so they're gonna go with the bigger outlets so they can make even more money. And Chicago is still on tour, Annie is still on tour, and Cats is currently on Broadway. So even though I don't think our audience overlaps a lot with the Broadway audience, if a show is on Broadway, typically you can't get the rights. And after it closes on Broadway, which is going to be fairly frequently, then they'll take out a tour, which means we probably won't get Cats for about 4 years. And sometimes you just never know. Sometimes it just slips by. And even the show that's running on Broadway, they'll give you the rights to. So that's why I also try to procure these licensing and rights in about January. So again, it's January, we make the decision. I either hear back, sometimes you hear back that day, sometimes it takes 4 weeks, and then you have to send them that big chunk of change as soon as you get the contract, otherwise they'll deny it. I think you have 30 days from the time they send you the contract that you can do the show to when that deposit is due. So the bigger shows you have to try earlier. For example, I've been trying to get Mamma Mia for 3 years. And so I applied for that literally January 1st, just to be kind of the first ones there. But if there is a bigger theater around that's doing it, then I won't get the rights. So that's just how it works, but that's why. Yes?
I know Greta Zanstra had done original plays when she goes and hits the circuit on the
Right.
elementary schools and all that stuff. She did that for us 2 years in a row. Economically, you would save monies if you did original production. Am I showing my ignorance to say that, why don't you do that?
No, that is good.
No,
good.
really, because you
If it's
save
going
$15,000 to
to be-
$20,000.
That's right. But how many of you are going to come and see Peggy and Jacob put on a show?
No,
As
no,
opposed to Beauty and the Beast?
Well,
thank you.
we would.
Right.
That
But
was
you know
gonna
what I
be
mean?
my assumption, that you
Yes.
would say, these
The
brands,
title recognition
these
is
brands
huge.
get
Yeah.
the people to come.
And that's how we
what I
bring
thought
so many people in. And typically, John, I try to
Yeah.
slip in
Yeah.
one sort of heavier show, one with a little more emotional impact, which doesn't sell. Last year we did a
Oh,
beautiful
yeah.
production of Tuesdays with Maury. I don't know if any of you
you
got
meant.
to see
Oh,
it.
fantastic.
But it was fantastic, and we would do that to audiences of 30 people.
Oh.
As opposed to something
too
like
bad.
Beauty and the Beast, where we're gonna have standing room only, I hope, for most of those performances.
I
Um,
thought you were gonna respond that way. It's too bad, because
It is.
you do have 30 believers in this room, but we're not gonna fill up the joint for you.
Right. Well, and if you use any kind of music that's not original music, you still have to pay ASCAP to those artists. So if we wanted to do a big splashy Christmas show, if we're not using all original music,
Mhm.
and who, you know, I love original music,
Sure.
but you want to hear Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
That's right.
So you're gonna have to pay for that.
That's right.
You even have to pay for Happy Birthday.
You have,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
And it's expensive.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
But who do you pay?
ASCAP.
ASCAP.
Really, they own it?
And people kind of skirt that. I was raised Catholic, so the guilt alone would just make me too nervous. So I can't do that. People do. I just can't. I play by the rules. Yes.
Who's the grant application being made to? Who's got the money that you're trying to get through grants?
Well, we have a bunch of different angles with the Temple Theater. It's on the Historic Register, so we try to go that way. Our youth programs, we try to go that way. And frankly, the hardest part about grant writing, for those of you who have tried it, is finding the grant that will match your organization. That's what takes the most research. The actual writing of the grant, Chris and I have done so much, we can kind of whip one out in a couple of days of, focused concentration. These days, we are going after Fletcher. We are going after Doris Duke Foundation. A lot of the bigger grants now are community-centric. They want their headquarters to be based in North Carolina. For example, I've been going after GM forever. And every year they tell me, well, we've kind of narrowed our focus that we are now only going to be in, it's either Michigan or Minnesota. But someday we will go back out and be national again. So since 2008, a lot of the larger corporate sponsors have really gone into their own communities and neighborhoods, and that's it. The federal money, I think, again, we have a lot of angles. We are an underserved, somewhat rural county still. We are a woman-run organization. So there are many angles. It's finding what we think we can actually get money from, because it takes, a day to apply. And then again, sometimes you get a no back in 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes 3 weeks. And then you actually have to do the application. So it's finding which organization is a good fit for our organization is the trickiest part. But again, we have a lot of different ways that we can get our fingers in those pots. It's really just figuring out when and where and how. And we do kind of the shotgun approach. We send them out and you just hope that one's gonna come back. And now that we have reached $1 million budget, that means something in the grant making world. So I'm hoping that we can get grants we've been denied before. Yes?
This might be a sore point, but is anything ever going to happen to the Black Box Theater?
That's not a sore point at all. Again, when I came here, I had wonderful vision. Some of it was a mirage. And frankly, the Black Box was one of those. We don't have the audience to sustain 2 theater spaces at this point. And we do need a place to build our sets. So now it is the workshop, it's the shop, which is another thing that we are constantly looking for. We have something coming down the pike that I think is going to be very exciting for Sanford and the Temple Theater, that's going to expand our reach even more. But we need a working warehouse space in order to build sets and store props and store costumes, and we haven't found that perfect match. The 2 places and the place that we're occupying now isn't climate controlled, and unfortunately keeps getting broken into. So we need a secure place that we can build our sets that's easily transportable in a box truck. So I think once we find that space, it'll clear up the black box space. It still needs probably about $50,000 to $100,000 worth of renovations. So again, we have to find the funding for that before it can be used as a viable second theater space. And frankly, I think by the time we get that funding and we get the space up to code, the audience will be prepared then to do other things in there. You know, Chris is raring to go. You know, I could bring in this act, I could bring in that act, we could do smaller plays, we could do original pieces there, because then you only have to sell 70 tickets as opposed to 330 tickets to make it go. But at this point, until we get the funding and another space.
So if anybody's got a warehouse out there that they want to give us really cheap,
Right.
then we can play with the black box.
That's right.
Stuck.
Yes.
What is your audience local versus, I mean, I always heard numbers I heard a long time ago were terrible as far as.
It's still
people
not,
can
it's not as terrible. It's not what I would like it to be, of course. I want everybody in Lee County to go, wow, we have this beautiful gym that brings you Broadway caliber shows for $27 a ticket, instead of driving to Durham or Raleigh or Greensboro. I think, I don't know the exact number. Do you know the 58% is local? Is out of town. That's what I thought. Yeah. When I got here, it was about 73%.
Yeah, that sounds like about 20% better.
Right, it is. So I'm encouraged, actually. And again, I think a lot of people that haven't been to the temple don't know what happens there. You know, not only do we do these 7 shows and fabulous kids shows in the summers, but we do all kinds of other acts. You know, the Embers are coming again this year. Sweet Potato Pie is coming again this year. Henry Cho, if you want to laugh, come and see Henry Cho, is coming. I don't know if any of you got to see Gallagher, but we have national acts that come in, again, for a quarter of what you would pay. And then you don't have to pay for parking. You can go and eat at one of our fabulous restaurants and keep your money in this community. And I think people just don't know that. We just did the Rocky Horror Picture Show a couple weekends ago, played the movie twice. And again, it was a whole different crowd, but they had a blast. You know, so we really do try on our one-offs to appeal to a different crowd, get people in, because once people get in that beautiful building and see how intimate it is, and see how you're part of the action, they'll come back. Our ambassador program, just to expound on that a little bit, if you're an ambassador, along with your cheap wine and getting to meet and greet and watch some rehearsal, you're given 4 complimentary tickets to opening night that you are then charged to go out in the community and give them to somebody who's never been to the Temple Theater, who can't afford the regular ticket price, who you think would be particularly interested in that production. And through that program alone, we've had probably 20% of those people that came for the first time to the Temple Theater have bought season tickets. So you just have to get them there. And that's our job. You know, that's, unfortunately, with a $25,000 annual marketing budget, we only have so many ways that we can reach people. But it's word of mouth, and it's telling your neighbors, and it's bringing an extra couple with you when you come to the theater who may or may not have ever been before. That's our best advertisement, because once we get them there and they see what we do, they're hooked.
I think you're doing a fabulous job.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Hey, do many of the groups do what we do, like fly out the balcony to bring our Rotary Club?
Right. Again, not as many as I would like. That's one of the things I think we can promote better, because it is. I think it's a fun night.
Oh,
we love it.
Yvonne's done it for us. How many times?
I think 3 times.
Right.
3?
And new this year, thank you for bringing that up, we are doing different times for our shows, because the audience has asked if we could lower the start time a little bit. And the restaurants downtown, I know, for example, the Steel Pig is now going to be open after all the shows, because we're doing, and they're also open for lunch every day. We're doing 2 o'clock matinees. How was that for a shameless plug? 2 o'clock matinees on Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And then Friday and Saturday night shows. The evening shows are going to start at 7:30. Write that down. So 2 o'clock Thursday, Friday, Sunday, 7:30 on Friday and Saturday, so people can go to Joe's, can go to the Pig, can go to Smoke and Barrel and see Dave play. You know, so we really are trying to get, again, everybody to come downtown and stay downtown. Our big goal is everybody comes and eats, they come to see a show, and then they go out afterwards downtown to have a cocktail or have a dessert and coffee and then get in your car and go home. So we're hoping that with that, everybody will be out between 9:15 and 9:30. That's still early on a weekend. So go out and spend some more money. Stay downtown.
Peggy,
Yes, ma'am.
we've already decided we're gonna be coming back
Oh,
for
good.
Beauty and the Beast
Excellent.
upstairs.
Make your reservation now.
Okay. Oh,
Because that one's gonna sell out.
okay.
Well, we don't have time to let Jacob talk, but if you heard him talk, you would be as impressed as I am. And I hope you'll come and see his work in Footloose and Beauty and the Beast, because particularly Footloose, these kids are working so hard. They've never danced like this. In fact, last night we were like, remember, it's still a musical. Your lips have to at least move while you're dancing. But she's trying to kill him, and he just might. But if he doesn't, it's going to be the most fantastic dance show you've ever seen at the temple. So, thank you all.
Thank you.
I want to tell you that I just joined the Guild.
Excellent.
It's a new support program that they are putting on to help support everything that's going on at the temple. So it's volunteers, so if anybody wants to volunteer and do a little bit thing, a little extra, okay?
And that is building sets, painting sets, cooking, organizing volunteer events,
Ushering, whatever.
ushering, all that stuff that just, again, keeps us active.
Yeah, I came to town the same time Peggy did, and I can tell you, she has dreamed big more than anybody I have ever seen. It's just a
It's not
phenomenon.
over yet.
I know. I'm excited. So terrific.
Thank you.
And I have always done a la carte. You sign me up.
Yay, good.
See you there?
Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, you want to do our choice?
We got $37 today. So
Woo-hoo.
in fact, I let you
Oh,
didn't talk much.
person
so I
did
let
talk.
you-
Perfect.
You want to read
No,
the
for
last
sure.
4 of it?
No, sing it.
Sing it, there you go.
7480.
Hey.
All right.
There you go.
You're welcome.
All right.
I thought I'd throw yours away.
John, will you lead us in the four-way test?
I sure will, President Doug. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First.
Is it
Truth.
Is
it
fair to all
concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time you can stay. I'll tell you, man.